What's up, guys? We are back with another XesRay Studio review, and we're taking a look at the LA Comic-Con exclusive KETUTA, the Bighorn. So I recently took a look at some slightly early samples of the other, we'll call them all Minotaurs, the actual Minotaur, and then the one that's like a buffalo or a bison. But this guy is a giant red rhino man built on that same kind of body. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in a giant rhino man. Now, this is also the first time I'm actually seeing packaging for this line. I have no idea what the rest of this stuff looks like, because the other stuff I got were without boxes. So this is kind of a first look for me when it comes to the packaging for this line. Now, this particular figure at least has a slipcover, so you've got this sort of bit of artwork on the front of KETUTA there. You've got a call-out sticker for LA Comic-Con, and the back has some more artwork of him as well, like sort of comic panel style. Pop that slipcover off, of course, and you've got the actual packaging within there. So you've got the Combatants Fight for Glory logo, you've got a big product shot of him on the front, more LA Comic-Con call-outs on the front, as well as the top of the box. The sides have a black and white shot of artwork, and then the back gives us another product shot of the figure taking on some of the gladiators, as well as a little bit of a write-up and a bio for this guy. So yeah, I'm really excited for this one in particular because the first two were awesome, and Red Rhino Man just sounds fun. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go. Out of the package, our XesRay Studios KETUTA, the Bighorn. Again, this is the LA Comic-Con exclusive figure for this particular subline of the Combatants figures. So we've gotten a Minotaur, there's a Buffalo Man, they're all like Minotaur-esque, just different animals, really. And quite frankly, some of the most surprising figures I've gotten my hands on this year. I was very, very happy with the first two. And in many ways, this guy has been even more exciting because he's just weird. He's a red rhino, so just, you know, for me personally, that's goofy. I like that kind of stuff. So let's see what this guy can do, see how he moves around. He is still built on the exact same body as those two figures, but that's not a negative. They move really, really well. So we've got a head that can look up and down a little bit. This is the area of this figure where he is probably a little bit more limited than the others just by virtue of like the, you know, construction and the sizing of this head. He does have your tilt side to side. You can rotate a little bit. It's just a ball peg in there. So there is decent range. He just has a really long head. He also has a movable jaw. Your arms go out at the shoulders pretty much all the way. You do have a butterfly joint, and just like the other two, mine are pretty tight on this guy, so I'm not too sure how much range you're actually going to get out of those. Swivel, you've got your bicep swivel, single jointed elbows, but get you 90 degrees, and then you've got ball hinges at the wrist, so you can get them to go any which way, swivel them all around, all that good stuff. For the torso, you've got an ab crunch and a ball peg that's going to go backwards. He's squeaky, but he's also going to crunch forward a good bit. It works well for when you're doing like a charge or something like that. You've got your tilt side to side. You've got your swivel as well. Your legs are going to go out about yay far, almost to full splits, pretty close. They kick forward all the way. They kick backwards. You've got a twist up there. We've got double jointed knees. Those move really, really well. Pinless as well. And then you've got rocker and you've got hinges down at those ankles. So very good posability. I mean, honestly, I never had any issues with the first two, and he is more of the same. The only area that I consider, you know, limiting in many ways, at least for this particular version, is the head, just because it's a long head, so it doesn't have as much range. And then those butterfly joints continue to be pretty tight across all three figures, but everything else on this guy is tight in a good way. Everything is solid and sturdy, and he's got really nice balance and poses pretty easily. Now, of course, for me, articulation is always important, but the visuals are generally more important to me. I want it to look cool, and this is a cool figure that is also a cool idea. I've said it a number of times in plenty of reviews at this point, weird color variants are always something that interests me. It's just something that goes back to me being a kid. The weirder, the wackier, the better. And this is kind of weird and wacky. So these figures are already really well sculpted, very well proportioned, very well put together, tons of great sculpt, tons of great paint. We had very real world as they could be, examples of a bull and a buffalo with the first two. They're taking it in a different way. It's not just a gray rhino. This is a red rhino, and he's very red too. Super bright, super vibrant, with a ton of wash, and some really killer armor as well. That's one of the things that differentiates these figures, is some of the differences when it comes to armor and just how things are applied to these figures. So this guy, for starters, is massive. He's a very large figure, bulky, wide, and tall. There's a lot of plastic here. The sculpt on all of this is just terrific. I love the, like the shock of fur and hair up on the top. I like the use of sort of mixed media. So we've got, a little bit of soft goods down there under that leathery skirt piece. It's not a lot, but it does break him up. It adds a pop of color with that navy blue. So it's a little bit of a difference in comparison to some of the more earthy tones on the belt. We got this gnarly buckle right here, which I absolutely love, with this sort of tri-blade setup that's just sticking out from his hips. Really interesting, kind of nasty looking. I do like that. He does have human feet, so you've got standard feet down here on the bottom. Just like the other figures, he does include extra feet that are more in line with what a rhino actually has. So we'll get to those. But you've got some, ankle wraps. You've got bracers on him. This stuff is removable, so you can just pop the hands off, pop the feet off, and you can take that stuff off should you choose to not want to use it. So you do have some options if you want to make him, a little bit more naked, if that's your thing. If you want him to look a little bit more or less gladiator, I suppose. But it's all about this color, and it's all about the paint applications and just the overall massive nature of this figure. He's really big, he's really beefy, but this red is very striking, and it's going to contrast against the brown and the red of the other two, or the brown and the black, rather, of the other two really well. He's going to stand out, something different, something a little bit more, jarring to the eye when you've got him on your shelf fighting other guys. You've got tons of pitted texture all over him, muscle striations, tons and tons of sculpt, musculature just for days. This guy is supremely jacked. And he also is covered in a black wash. I mean, it's all over the back. Like there's not a single part of this figure that doesn't have some extra kind of paint detail. And then you've got this head sculpt up here, which is obviously a big differentiator from the other two figures because it is so different. The other two are really close. They're different heads, but they're very thematically similar. This is an entirely different kind of animal. So you've got tons of fur up in that sculpt, the two massive horns, the first one with the big wrap up there. You've got some really orange eyes with the black pupil. So that's a little bit of a shock of color in comparison to the deeper red. And then, of course, you've got that opening jaw that does show you the tongue and the teeth and all that stuff in there. So he's just a gnarly looking figure in every single way, from the brutal nature of this armor to that cod piece, the skirt piece down there that adds a little bit of a mixed texture and pop of color. And then, of course, the overall outlandish nature of this black and red really makes him stand out and makes me even more excited for what they can do with other kinds of animals and taking it a step further by making it a really weird color. Now for some size comparisons, let's start with other, fantasy kind of figures. So we've got our KETUTA here in the middle. We've got one of the Axie Toys Dinosaur Battlefield. This is the Carnotaurus Leader on the left. And then this is, and you're going to see this guy a lot going forward, this is a custom I picked up at Legions Con from Anything's Posable. Check him out on Instagram for sure, to give you a sense of what a Mythic Legions figure is going to scale like. And of course they are, in general, much smaller for our standard figures. Let's pull these guys aside. Let's do a Masterverse. Here is Too Bad, and he's one of the larger figures to give you a good sense of scale. And let's do a Legends for some Hasbro representation for your standard 112 kind of stuff. So there's Bishop. Let's do a Figuarts. So here is Superhero Piccolo, one of my standbys. And then for something small, just to give you a really good sense of how big this guy is, here is a Plunderling to show you just how big this guy is. These guys are really big, they're really bulky, dare I say, really beefy. There is a lot of figure here. He's going to tower over just about anything that you stack him up against. Now, as far as accessories goes, KETUTA and the rest of these really all come with the same kind of assortment. They have a standard loadout, but everything is really different except for the hands. So to start with, we do get some extra hands. He's got gripping hands on him in the box. You get a set of style posy, resting, open palm kind of hands. And then you also get a set of fists. So kind of the basics when it comes to hands. You don't get a lot of stuff with these guys, but it's all fairly impactful. You get a signature weapon. So of course he gets a big monster mace, a spiked mace club kind of weapon. The other two come with their own unique axes, which of course can be shared across the figures if you want. This definitely has some size to it. It's almost as tall as the figure itself. Not super heavy either, so balancing it and actually using it is fairly simple. But I think my favorite aspect of these figures, and this one in particular, is the idea of giving them swappable feet. So the other two Minotaurs, Quesos and Thales, they came with actual hoofed feet and calves. So they actually made them taller when you swapped them out, but it gave them, classic Minotaur hoof feet. This is a rhino, though, so he shouldn't have hooves like that. He should have these larger flat feet that have a few toes on them. It really makes me think there's an elephant man coming after seeing these feet, and I'm really excited for that. Now, I do prefer these to the human feet on these guys, and I do prefer them on this one in particular. While it doesn't make him taller, it just flows a little bit better. It makes him seem less human because he's a rhino man, so it's kind of cool to give him that. I didn't even think about the fact that he would or wouldn't include the hoofed feet, and I was really happy to see these in the box because they do, I think, make quite a bit of difference and make him into something a little bit more, fantastical rather than just a big giant human with a rhino head. This looks more like a rhino man. So you do get the options when it comes to swapping out the feet. You get the couple hands, and then again, you do get a monster weapon. So not a ton of stuff overall in terms of parts, but it's all really, really useful. So yeah, overall, this is a really fun figure. We're already starting in a good place because I'm familiar with these figures and I've had exposure to the other two, and we're going in a different and fun direction on a figure on a base body that was already really solid to begin with. It's a big red rhino man. I'm not really sure it needs a whole lot of selling. If you want a big red rhino, this is your opportunity. It also happens to move well, look terrific, come with a decent number of really good accessories, and if you're into these, fantastic, larger beast type of characters, you've got a really good subset to start from with the 3 that they're putting out already. It just happens to be infinitely cooler to me that he's a red rhino man. So that's going to do it for this look at the XesRay Studio Combatants Fight for Glory KETUTA, the Big Horn. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.